Should be live.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Wooster City Council held by Zoom video conferencing and YouTube on this Monday, October 19th, 2020. It's after 7:30 p.m. Had a little technical difficulties. The next meeting scheduled for City Council would be Monday, November 2nd, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. If you would, please, Ms. DiPaolo, as Clerk of Council, call the roll.
Mr. Ansel.
Here.
Mr. Bostancic. We're waiting on him. Mr. Cavan.
Here.
Mr. Myers.
Here.
Mr. Sanders.
Here.
Mr. Silvestri.
Here.
And Ms. Warden.
Here.
Well, we'll hope Mr. Bostancic can join us, but we do have a quorum. The agenda will remain as presented. And now that everyone's comfortable, I would ask that you stand and join the members of the City Council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
And to the
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of October 5th, 2020. So I would accept a motion to do so.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Silvestri to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Warden. All in favor of approving the minutes of October 5, 2020, please say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The October 5, 2020 minutes are approved. Well, good evening and welcome, Mayor. It's good to see you and looking forward to hearing what you have to say this evening.
Well, thank you, President Beitendijk and members of council. Good evening. Looking forward to the meeting this evening. Just a bit more than we had last meeting. Back on June 1st of 2020, Council passed Resolution 2020-29, allocating $100,000 for a 2-year support of the Living Room project at the Salvation Army. I'm happy to report that the Living Room Day Center at the Salvation Army opened last Wednesday, October 7th, which was 2 days after our last council meeting, for use each weekday from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. These are for, this is an area for people that don't have a home to go to or a place to sit back and rest. And so our thanks to Majors Tim and Constance Higgins of the Salvation Army and the Housing Coalition for helping make this become a reality for our city. Clear Creek Park started under construction out on Venture Boulevard. It started a week ago today. Simonson Construction is the building contractor, and they're doing a lot of the clearing of the trail area, and they'll be starting in actual construction here in the next days if the rain lets up. Freelander Chalet, the pool and chalet parking lot was paved by our city crews, and in 2 weeks the new roof should be going on the chalet, so we should be having that place really in nice looking shape here by the end of this fall. The new dump truck that council approved at our last meeting was delivered today. It's the fastest truck delivery we've ever had. It's a 2021 model, so it's a great addition into our fleet, and we thank council for approving that and getting that moving so quickly here. We will be doing a tree planting ceremony to observe Arbor Day and Worcester's Tree City USA status. Arbor Day is actually usually in the spring, but it was at the same time that COVID was hitting, and so we were not able to celebrate that. So we are doing it this coming Wednesday at 1 p.m. up at Diller Point, where we'll be planting a dawn redwood tree. Actually, the Tree City designation started in 1976. Worcester, along with Springfield and Westerville, are the three oldest tree cities in Ohio. So we've got a sort of a nice tradition that we keep carrying forward. So if any of you would like to join us on Wednesday, the Urban Forestry Committee will be present, and along with our city arborist, Dan Yarnell, and our PPM staff and myself up at Diller Point to plant a dawn redwood tree that really Diller Point is sort of named after the dawn redwood tree benefactor in our city. So our first home proposed for the old Larwell Trailer Park site went through and got approvals from the Board of Zoning Appeals last week. Got a picture of it here if I can grab it quick. This is what they presented. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but it's really a nice looking home. It's designed with 1,400 square feet and a 2-car garage, and really will be a nice expansion of that facility down there. So we're really pleased. Chad Borman purchased the site from Wooster Growth for development. So we look forward. I think that area has probably room for another 7 or 8 homes on top of that one if they get started. It'll be coming off of Larwell Street. We are working on a fall city newsletter. It should be out on October 28th, so you can look for that. At the 9/8/20 City Council meeting, Council approved the purchase of the 5L Farm between Gyers Chapel Road and Melrose Drive. We've been working with Jobs Ohio and our other development partners to get the land listed in their site inventory. But I am happy to say that we've had a local company inquire about the site and may be interested in growing at the 5L Farm site. So we've barely even gotten it off the table, and we're having people ask about possible room in that industrial park. And I'll finish on something with that brings great sadness to us. We learned that David Braille, a longstanding member of the Worcester community, passed away today. David has been very active in the Wayne County Historical Society, Worcester politics, Coxon Bleak China, produced here in the city of Worcester, saving historic structures like the Overholt House. And Dave and his wife Margot were instrumental in creating the Cornerstone School Play Lab with Danny's Hill. David and Margot graduated from the College of Worcester and have been involved in many community projects during their life in our city. David and his energetic style will be sorely missed in our community. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, President Biden.
I do want to say we do have Mr. Bostancic.
Yes, I'm on speakerphone.
Okay.
Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Sorry, but I've had computer issues. I still might be able to get online here. Hold on, but go ahead.
Well, we're glad you could join us, Mr. Bostancic. That turns to petitions. There's 2 petitions before council tonight. One's a petition to vacate a street by a couple of people on Mel Lane. If you want to read that petition, I'd appreciate it, Ms. DiPaolo.
Petition to vacate street. The undersigned owners of lots in the city of Worcester, Ohio, respectfully petition your honorable body that said street described below be vacated between the points named for the reason that it no longer serves a public purpose and its vacation will not be detrimental to the general interest. The undersigned do hereby consent to the vacation of said street in accordance with this petition filed within said council. Said future street is 457 feet long, running in a west direction from Mel Lane to an empty field between lots numbers 33 and 34. And the Gerber family and the Two family both signed the petition.
And it's my understanding the other contiguous property owner did not sign the petition, so we're going to have to advertise and wait, is it 6 weeks is what you,
6 weeks of advertising, yes.
so, but we'll consider to have the reading tonight of the petition, and I assume there's a notice. Does a notice go out to the other property owner?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, so, all right. Then we also have a petition for a liquor license. Happens to be my neighbor from on my where I have my law office. It's at the location of the old Parlor restaurant. So if you would please, Mr. Paulo, read that petition as well.
This is a petition from the Ohio Division of Liquor Control. It's for a D5L permit obtained from Leaf Inc., 203 West Liberty Street, Wooster, Ohio, 44691.
And as you all are aware, we have a few options. We can have a hearing in our county seat, which of course would be Worcester. We could have a hearing in Columbus, or we can waive having a hearing. So I'll entertain a motion.
President Biden-Dyke, motion to waive hearing.
All right. Motion to waive hearing by Mr.
Second.
Meyer. And I see Mr. Bostancic in living
Hey,
color.
Good to see you, Mr. Bostancic.
He
Computer-
seconded it.
I had computer issues, sorry.
If you would call the roll on the waiver of the hearing, Mr. Paulo, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Ansel,
Yes.
Mr. Bostancic,
Yes.
Mr. Cavan,
Yes.
Mr. Myers,
Yes.
Mr. Sanders,
Yes.
Mr. Silvestri,
Yes.
and Ms. Warden.
Yes.
All right, the motion to waive the hearing passes. If you would, please, Mr. Paulo, let the Department of Liquor Control know that we do not request a hearing. That being said, I'll look at Mr. Scavelli with regard to communications from the public.
Yes, so I have one question. And the question is, I have a question about how decisions, this is from Desiree Weber. She says, I have a question about how decisions are made about how the city spends CARES Act money. What priorities are in place, and especially for public health during a pandemic? She's saying that this is in reference to 2020-41, and that the resolution mentions building a sludge storage tank, which I explained to her, and I just checked that is a typo in the emergency section. So I did answer that question for her, but she still would like to know how the determination is made as to how that money is spent.
Actually, our finance director probably has the best, or Mr. Montgomery from our director of administration. There are real strict guidelines from the federal government on how we can use CARES Act dollars. And those two both have worked very hard to learn what is allowed and what is not allowed. Gentlemen, would either of you like to take a bite at that apple?
I can tell you what we can spend on that. You can use it for COVID-19 testing and contact tracing, economic support other than small business housing and food assistance, expenses associated with the issuance of TANs, which are tax anticipation notes, to facilitate distance learning, food programs, housing support, improving telework capabilities of public employees, medical expenses, nursing home assistance, payroll for public health and safety employees, PPE, personal protective equipment, public health expenses, small business expenses, and counties are able to transfer to, this wouldn't be applicable to us, but counties can transfer to other governments. So those are the eligible expenses, or categories actually. Joel, would you care to add anything?
Just to reiterate what we used those provisions that you said to evaluate what we could use it for. What the mayor said is correct, and we actually submitted a list of all eligible items that pertain to that list that Andre just read to the state and asked them. And some things that we submitted were not allowed, some things will be allowed, and we're pretty much sticking to the list there of the eligible items that Andre had mentioned.
Mr. Montgomery, Scott Myers asking, have we been able to utilize all the funds we've been given?
Yeah.
So to date, I'm pretty sure, and Andre might be able to answer this, we had to make one submission, I think, here within the next, within the next day or so. And so the answer would be yes. And then we'll have another one we'll have to do before the end of the year. And yes, we anticipate being able to use all of those funds.
Okay, moving right along. We don't have any committee reports, but we do have a public hearing regarding removal of the landmark designation for a property. Don't say who's going to be on the public hearing. Is that going to be?
I assume it'll be me, Mr. President, since I'm introducing that ordinance later.
That's what I assumed, but I didn't want to all of a sudden put your toes to the fire. And but if you wouldn't mind holding that public hearing, then I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we will open up our public hearing related to the request of the removal of a landmark designation on property located at 2101 East Smithville Western Road. To give a little bit of background, the property was purchased and was purchased recently by a new owner who at this particular point in time is requesting that removal of the landmark designation. At this point, I will open the public hearing to anyone in the public that wishes to speak for the removal of the landmark designation.
Yes, I'm the owner, Brent Willis. And the house has been removed and a lot of the buildings have been removed. We are in the process of building a new home on the site, and we don't want to be held by the bounds of the designation to ask permission for colors and everything. There's really no historical value left. It's basically just a lot.
Okay. Yeah, you as I read through the proposal or the information from design and review or from design review board, basically the house when it was purchased was in such disrepair that at this point try to do anything more with it other than demolition was just going to be sheer folly, and so
Right.
thus the request, or the whole reason why we're standing here with this while we're doing the public hearing, then ultimately why you've requested the removal. So I appreciate your comments on that. Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak against the removal of the landmark designation? All right, well, with that, then we will say that we've had our public hearing, and we will close it at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanders, for holding the public hearing, and we appreciate your participation in it, Mr. Wiles. So you can obviously stay around because we will be dealing with the piece of legislation to actually decide whether it's going to be removed from the landmark area. So again, thank you for your participation. That brings us to unfinished business, which there is none. And now item 7 on the agenda, new business. The first reading of ordinance number 2020-40 be presented by Mr. Sanders. It's slated for 3 readings, and it so happens to deal with the declaring the landmark designation no longer appropriate on this piece of property. We just had the public hearing. So before I turn it back over to you, Mr. Sanders, I'll ask Mr. Paulo to please read the title.
Ordinance number 2020-40, an ordinance declaring property within the city of Worcester as no longer landmark property.
Okay, Mr. Sanders, I turn the floor back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Beitendijk. Yes, Mr. Willis purchased this property November of 2018. After having purchased the property and started looking over the condition of it, the house was in complete disarray. As was put forth here in the report from the planning and zoning, it was a hoarded mess. And at that point, like I say, any historic value was lost and was not going to be able to be retained. So at that particular point in time, in January of 2019, he had made application to the Design and Review Board for the demolition of the house. And that meeting finally occurred here on October 1st of this year, where it was unanimously approved to remove the property from the historical designation or the landmark designation. At this point, yeah, we're it makes sense perfectly to do this, and like I say, this has already been reviewed by Design Review Board, and they at this point in time have already made their approval on it. So at this point, I would like to make a motion to move this along to third and final reading this evening.
I'll move.
Second. Second.
Motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Sanders. I heard someone second. I heard Mr. Bostancic second. So if everyone's happy with the first and second, then I'll turn to Mr. Paulo to please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bostancic.
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules has passed. Mr. Sanders, I look to you.
I would motion to adopt ordinance 2020-40.
Motion to adopt the ordinance by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second. Mr.
Second.
Myers.
By Mr. Myers. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt ordinance number 2020-40?
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bostancic.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance number 2020-40 has been adopted. That brings us to resolution number 2020-52. It'll be presented by Mr. Cavan, and it is a budgeted item, so no needed to go on 3 readings or suspension of the rules. But we do need to let Mr. Paulo read the title, if you would, please.
Resolution number 2020-52, a resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to purchase 3 Ford Interceptors for use as police cruisers.
Mr. Cavan, the floor is yours, sir.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. President. What we have here is a resolution authorizing purchase of 3 Ford Interceptors for use as police cars. We are replacing 3 other police cars apparently that are at the end of their useful life. It is a budgeted item, as President Bytendike had said. We're looking at a total estimated cost of $146,000. There is some retrofitting apparently that needs to be done because of the new body style with the new year. But other than that, it would be through the bidding would be at the state bidding at or below what we may be able to get from a local vendor. But with that, I do know Chief Fisher is here, and I would like to have talked to him, but things got away. Is there anything you would like to add, Chief Fisher?
I think you covered it, Mr. Cavan. I can answer any questions anybody has.
Chief Fisher, this is Mr. Myers. Is this the end of the sedans then? Is this the last 3, or are we still having?
No, this actually isn't any of the sedans, Mr. Myers. This is 3 of the SUVs,
Okay.
replacing with 3 more SUVs. These 3, by the time we get them replaced, we'll all have over 100,000 miles. And when you do the idle hour conversion to miles, then again, this was a week or 2 ago, you've got one with the equivalent of 430,000 miles, one at 394 and one at 360,000.
Okay. The sedans, are those mostly used by our resource officers at this point, not for patrol?
Right. So right now, we only have a couple sedans. School resource officers are using those. And then we have the old detective cars that we use like to run to school or do a court run, just our day-to-day operations. So the 3 that were kind of taken out of the fleet here are so high of miles that I probably wouldn't look to replace those sedans. We're kind of late in the year for this. Normally, we do this in the spring, but with COVID and waiting to I was trying to do some price comparisons between the new Tahoes, the new Fords. Fords came out cheaper. That's why we're kind of later in the year, and that's pushing miles up. So as we look next year to replace more cars on the cycle, we may be able to pull a couple sedans out then and replace them with SUVs that have a little lower miles on them.
Yeah, thank you for the explanation, Chief Fisher. I think that would probably be a nice move to make, because then we could step down as mileage. We can start moving things around to moving the patrol SUVs to resource officer type of use when the mileage gets up, and prolong their life a little bit, or kind of moving those around. So that's probably a very good strategy. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well, and I've always said that, we want our police department to have the best equipment possible and be safe. And seeing today, there was an incident at Chase Bank across the street from me. It was sure nice to see our black and whites roll up and take the situation in hand. So definitely want to have vehicles that can be counted on. So I have no problem spending the money for things like this. And as I said, all you have to do is go to some of these bigger cities when you see some of their police vehicles. It just leaves sometimes a real bad impression. And And I know that when officers have nice equipment, it makes them feel better as well, that they know the community cares.
Chief Fisher, what is the estimated date of delivery for these vehicles? I know that they have to be fitted with other internal and exterior materials. So will that delay it any more for you?
Well, so I haven't actually, of course, you guys have to pass the legislation before I place the order. I haven't placed the order yet, and part of my delay in this was state bid. So on the state procurement site, the bids for the 2020s go until October 31st, and then they'll replace that with the 21 bid. So the actual 2021 bid isn't in yet. So the number that's before you is basically a number not to exceed. My hope is when state contract drops, that number will actually be a little bit less, but I don't know. And I didn't want to wait because I know y'all will be running into budget meetings and things like that you're going to have some longer council sessions anyway. So the number I have is based on kind of what Pallotta thought it would fall at, but I'm going to wait to order these until that state bid drops at the end of October.
Do you have an idea? I mean, I know you haven't placed the order yet, but generally speaking, how long would that take, the turnaround time between order and receival?
Normally it's 3 months of standard. I haven't had a recent conversation with anybody. Hey, are we extended? I know they had prolonged sometimes, of course, when COVID hit, but my understanding is things are kind of getting back to normal, but I don't want to guess, Ms. Warden, I'll be wrong.
Well, I appreciate your attempt. Thank you.
If there's nothing else, I guess I would like to ask Resolution 2020-52 be adopted.
All right, motion to adopt by Mr. Cavan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. I saw his hand and I heard his voice first. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt ordinance or resolution number 2020-52?
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Sorry, yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bostancic,
Yes.
Ansel.
Yes.
All right, resolution number 2020-52. Now, no wild colors there, Chief.
We've already had our turn with blue, Mr. Beitendijk.
Yes, I was going to say no Smurf blue.
Right.
All right, that brings us to the first reading of resolution number 2020-41. It is slated for 3 readings. It will be presented by Mr. Ansel, but if you would, Mr. Paulo, please read the title. And this is one of the shortest probably all year.
Ordinance number 2020-41. An ordinance amending the annual appropriation ordinance.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is more favorable news regarding the city's receipts of the county's CARES Act fund. And we've had 2 prior distributions from the county's allocation. The first was in July, if you recall, and we received it into our fiscal responsibility, $794,739. There was a second distribution in September for an additional $397,370. This is the third and final distribution of fund allocation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Andre, this is anticipated to be the final distribution of the CARES Act funding in the set amount of $951,127.44. We'll receive these funds and hold them in our budget accounts or our fiscal accounts. And I will highlight in response to the question earlier on in the opening question portion of our council session, the city administration is setting up meetings in compliance with the sunshine laws, whereas 2 council members will be reviewing not only our budget thought process, as well as the allocation of the CARES relief funding across our 2021 budget. So these funds will stay secured, but be allocated to offset future expenses and expenses incurred through the 2020 pandemic. So it's a good move on behalf of the city's administration to sit down with the respective council members to review this very, very unusual allocation process. It's not often that cities receive these amounts to help offset some of the unrecovered costs that incurred during a crisis, an unprecedented crisis that we've dealt with in 2020. So this is doing nothing more than providing our council's approval of acceptance of said funds, the third in a program of distribution by the county. So that being noted, I would motion to suspend the rules and move ordinance 2020-41 to third and final reading this evening.
A motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Seconded, Mr. Myers.
Second by Mr. Myers. Would you please call the roll on the suspension of the rules?
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
Okay, the rules are suspended. I look to you again, Mr. Ansel.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
I have a question. Can I wait till after the second to do it, or?
Yes.
I'll second.
We'll have discussion after the second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Silvestri will second.
All right, seconded by Mr. Silvestri. Now, comments, questions?
I just have a quick question. How does this relate to the construction of the sludge tank? The distribution of funds from for the CARES Act?
I can answer that. I believe that is a typo. My suggestion would be that we we move to amend that to just take that line out. We can either add in the line that was used in that section on the last piece of legislation, or we could just cut it out entirely, which is probably the easiest way to do it tonight. But that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Well, I can do that right now. I would make a motion to amend ordinance 2020-41, section 4, to delete in order to facilitate the construction of a sludge storage tank.
Seconded.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Ansel, and there was a second by,
I think it was Mr. Myers.
yeah, I heard I heard a male voice before I heard the.
Jennifer was there too.
In my household, I always hear the female voice, so sorry, Ms. Warden.
No worries.
Any discussion on that amendment? It's kind of a editorial move.
I'm just going to say I'm very grateful for it because I had prepared several notes about the confusion there. So I'm grateful for the clarification.
Yeah. All right. Seeing none, would you call the roll on the amendment, please?
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
And I would ask you to make a motion again, Mr. Ansel, to, on the motion to adopt the ordinance as amended.
I would make a motion to amend ordinance 2020-41,
No,
section.
motion to adopt the
Oh,
amendment.
motion to adopt. I'm sorry, Mr. President. Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt the amended ordinance by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Any other discussion? So no money goes that sludge tank, just so we're all perfectly clear. And Mr. Bostancic, I'm not sure you were with us when it was pointed out earlier on in the meeting that that was a typo.
Oh, no.
It was a good catch, so.
Oh, okay. I was still trying to fix my computer at that time.
Yeah. Well, we might have to take a collection up to get you to buy a smartphone, because I hear we're 20 years into the 21st century and you still don't have a smartphone.
I do have the apex of 1990s technology, though.
Oh, okay. Any other discussion on the motion to adopt the amended ordinance? Seeing none, would you please call the roll, Mr. Paulo?
Bostancic,
Yes.
Yes.
Myers, Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
Resolution number 2020-41 passes. We'll turn our attention to resolution number 2020-53. It is also going to be presented by Mr. Ansel, and this one is budgeted. But I will ask Mr. Paulo if she would please to read the title.
Resolution number 2020-53. A resolution authorizing the Director of Finance to issue payment for services rendered prior to the fiscal officer's certification of availability of funds and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours again.
Yes, this is a very straightforward administrative approval for the amount of $3,515. Our pothole crack filler machine malfunctioned, broke down. Season's coming to a close. It's pretty important to get that fixed and maintain operations in continuity of repair. They did so, and this is the invoice after the fact. So it's nothing more than responding to a needed repair and approving the expenditure to DJL Material and Supply Company. That being noted, I would motion to suspend the rules and move resolution 2020-53 to third and final reading.
Well, mine says it's
Oh,
budgeted, and I might have made a mistake on that.
Oh, no, it's a resolution.
Yeah,
But it was, it's budgeted under the normal repairs of equipment, I believe.
Yeah.
Andre, is that?
And that's
So-
a bundled amount. That's a gross amount. But this
Well,
is just
what I was trying to allude to is we don't need to suspend the rules.
motion to adopt.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Ansel. Motion to adopt by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Mr. Cavan, second.
All right, second by Mr. Cavan. Discussion?
I
Pretty
think the city,
straightforward.
the citizens,
All
I think the
one-
citizens would hang us if we don't repair this machine, so.
Yeah, I don't want to be getting phone calls from people why my pothole or the cracks in my pavement aren't being repaired. So, seeing no further discussion, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt, Mr. Paulo?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden, Jen,
Yes.
okay, Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bostancic.
Yes.
All right, resolution number 2020-53 passes. Our final piece of legislation, ordinance number 2020-42. This is part of Mr. Ansel's roadshow. It is slated for 3 readings, but we gotta look to Ms. DiPaolo to please read the title.
Ordinance number 2020-42. An ordinance amending ordinance number 2004-33 by expanding the boundaries of the Wooster Community Reinvestment Area Number 1 and permitting new construction for residential CRA tax incentives and declaring an emergency.
All right, Mr. Ansel, the floor is yours, sir.
This is a very important and comprehensive analysis and initiative. I want to commend Jonathan Millay and the city administration for the detail and the information provided in support of this ordinance. And this really represents a work in progress. It has been very, very important and very instrumental in really motivating millions of dollars of investment within our community, both on the residential improvement side, rehabilitation of homes, and also industrial growth and expansion. And it goes back to 2004 when the Wooster Community Reinvestment Area, CRA, #1 was initiated. So it has a long history, 16, 17 years. The success is significant, and there's a long, long history of investments made throughout the city. And this really, as I highlighted, is a work in progress because there was other enhancements and modifications made in 2006, 2007, and then finally in 2008. And these focused on expanding the boundaries and amending the original sections and provisions of the subsequent ordinances. So this is nothing new. This is going to be an ongoing process. It's very, very timely because it does coincide with a number of expansions within our city boundaries and a lot of renewed dynamics within our city limits. It has strong definition in section 2 of the ordinance, and I won't go into all the details right now, clearly delineating the terms and conditions of the property tax abatements and the required investments and jobs for both residential and commercial. And the beautiful thing about this ordinance and the CRA in and of itself is this provides the guidelines and the parameters and the designated areas that our city planners and our citizens and Wooster Growth Corporation and the special committees that have been working on this have highlighted target areas within our city limits to motivate these type of improvements and investments and expansions. But the guidelines, the abatement delineation guidelines are spelled out, but this is more focused on changing the parameters of the CRA, of which were highlighted in the attachment provided. And you can see the blue areas are the expansions noted here. And Jonathan has that in his background right now. Again, commendations to not only the residential housing study that was attached as part of this proposal and this ordinance revision, but also the nearly 80-page updated CRA filing with the State of Ohio Developmental Services. And that was a very, very impressive, lengthy, I have to tell you, it was a little boring, but nonetheless, the maps and the plats and the descriptions and the summaries and the intent is very impressive, and that will be going to the State of Ohio for our updated CRA definition and parameters. It does adhere. The administration was dubious in their methodology in terms of the targeted areas and the expansion regions noted. They want to maintain control and maintain the directional improvements within our city. And again, this is so important, and timing really isn't of the essence. There isn't anything pending or urgent right now. So I welcome other representatives of council to continue to digest this. Perhaps we'll get feedback from our constituents citywide. The information is there. I'm going to turn this over to Jonathan momentarily, but we'll just plan on keeping this on 3 readings. Let it run its course. In 4 weeks from now, we'll make the final determination. But I highly recommend that we proceed with this restructuring to continue to accommodate the focused and structured growth within our city. And again, I highlight this sets the guidelines. Every future CRA request will still be at the preview of Worcester City Council and Worcester Growth Corporation to ensure that we're adhering, that the requesters are adhering to the guidelines as provided in the CRA program. But more importantly, this is just changing some of the outlying regions in a more comprehensive summary and more accurate updated summary. So with that, I will turn it over to Jonathan Millay and open the floor to council for any questions they may have for Jonathan.
Oh, well, thank you, Mr. Ansel. I believe that you've covered just about all of that detail there. I'll leave up on my screen here for the moment the amendments that we're taking a look at. And specifically, there are 4 goals that we were looking to accomplish with this effort, which we took through the Worcester Growth Corporation. So we would like to thank them for their time and support. We had a tremendous amount of input from the Worcester Area Chamber of Commerce, Wayne Economic Development Council, our local Worcester City School District, and also individual members of Worcester Growth as we put this together. And we've also reached out and received some support from the state of Ohio in answering questions on going through this process. So one of the big things that we do when taking a look at the CRA is making sure that we can meet the state criteria for resolving issues of distress and promoting opportunities for job creation. The 2 major goals of the CRA at the state level are those 2 elements, which is anything that we can do to remediate slum and blight or support areas that have low to moderate income concentrations that are relatively high, and also support historic preservation where possible. So that's where a lot of our CRA focus has been in the last several years with its efforts on downtown, and it has been tremendously successful to the tune of employing nearly 300 jobs today with close to 50 housing units added or remodeled in that area. And the other major component is to support job creation that would not be possible otherwise. And to that end, we have also supported manufacturing with this and other basic sector activities. And we've supported non-basic sector activities such as retail in the downtown when there was historic restoration or building rehabilitation being accomplished. So with this new venture, what we're taking a look at with Worcester Growth was how do we continue to further these efforts? And so one of the first things, I'll just go from south to north. You'll see on the south side, we have our, the southern limits of our city are hashed out there in yellow. That's a section of the CRA that we're recommending for removal. This is an area that comprises our well field for a water supply in the city of Worcester. We do have some properties in this area that are in not so great shape. They are commercial. We don't have residential in the city limits in this location. This is all in floodplain, and this is not necessarily an area that one would want to encourage development. Rather, this is a place for environmental conservation and preservation of our water supply. Going a little bit further north, you'll see on the northwest end of the city, we see the CRA where its current limits is the center line of Old Mansfield Road and Bowman Street, extending northward along Venture Boulevard. This encompasses the recently annexed Graham Farm, which is not a property that's contained in the city's enterprise zone. So by extending CRA in this area, it allows the city the autonomy to grant incentives for basic sector job creation, or should it choose non-basic sector, but the goal, again, looking at state limitations on this, are jobs that would not occur otherwise. This gives the city the autonomy to grant incentives in this location. It also gives the city the opportunity to grant abatements to projects that might not necessarily fit into the enterprise zone criteria, which requires a minimum of 10 jobs. Case in point, I'd like to point to GMI, which today is a business that employs over 11 people. It was a small operation that wanted to start up and grow in Worcester. And so we utilized CRA off of the Akron Road corridor to assist that company, specifically Long Road. And so they were able to utilize the CRA and expand their business, and they're here today, having grown. So this is an incentive that can be provided in that application as well. In the middle, which appears here as the smallest, but probably one of the more detailed areas we really worked to gather data on, is our historic neighborhoods. As I mentioned before, the CRA today follows the center line of Bowman Street. So the homes immediately south of the center line on Bowman Street are incentivized. The homes to the north are not. When we're trying to upgrade a neighborhood, the thought here was, let's try to incorporate both sides of the street. And in this case, as we go into detail in this housing study, we found, taking an analysis of price points, assessment value by the auditor, record of property maintenance violations, rate of tax delinquencies, level of investment that our property, that our building department has measured, along with aspects such as the size of the structure, all indicated that we should extend our CRA approximately 2 blocks north in our historic neighborhoods, up to the vicinity of Pearl Street and Stibbs Street. The reason for this, again, is that these homes have faced many of the same disinvestment pressures that we're observing elsewhere in the CRA. And it made a lot of sense to include them with this in order to keep maintaining the investment going forward. And then as we extend further to the east here, we see the Akron Road corridor. And in the housing study, which is available online for people who are following online, that would be at our Wooster OH/development webpage. You can take a look at the study there. The data shares something different for us, and that is that real estate pressures toward housing are not as severe going north of Long Road, which is that latitude that is identified in the legislation. Going north of Long Road, there are still some pressures, but they're not nearly as severe as what we're experiencing in the downtown area. So a reduced level of incentive is recommended, whereas today the incentive is 100%. The recommendation is 50%, and also restricted to residential zones. So that is not something that we would have available in the C4 for residential. And just as a quick recap, when a residential incentive is granted, it's an administratively granted incentive. It happens, I don't want to say happens automatically, but there's a process for review still involving the school district, but it doesn't go to Worcester City Council. It's a check to see whether or not the property qualifies. So again, looking at the pressure and looking at, or in this case, the lack of, it made sense to reduce incentives. But one area that's added up here is the Williams Way subdivision, which is a subdivision that started in the 1990s. We have a little excerpt on page 11 that talks about this area where we have 17 vacant lots and the cost that adds to the taxpayer, because we have 17 lots where infrastructure is required to be paid for, where we don't have a home that's covering those costs. So that burden gets shared by other taxpayers. So that area is added with the benefit of, if homeowners would opt to get their projects LEED certified, which is leadership in environmental design, that an additional 2 years of abatement can be provided. This is a practice that City of Cincinnati, which is probably the leader in residential CRA, has enacted, and they've been able to have several hundred projects go through the LEED certification process to help take a more thoughtful approach to construction for energy efficiency, environmental conservation, and low usage on utilities. So there's some added expense to that, and that extra 2 years about covers what it would take to go through that process. Much like we're talking for the downtown, but again, capped at the 50% level. Going further north, and I'll open it up here afterwards, is our industrial section along Old Airport Road going into the 5L farm. So effectively, this covers all industrial areas within the Worcester City School District into the CRA. And once we get to the 5L farm site, that is an area that, similar to the Graham Farm, is located outside of the city's enterprise zone limits. The city is unable to amend those limits. So if the city wishes to ever have complete autonomy on granting of tax abatements, the CRA gives it the tool to do so. Short of that, we would look to partner with our Wayne County commissioners as they've graciously partnered with us in the past on 2 other projects recently. But to have that autonomy is an important thing, especially when we're looking to attract projects, and the CRA offers us that opportunity. So in any event, I would like to say thank you for listening to me on that. I appreciate your time, and I'd like to help answer any questions that you may have.
Jonathan, I probably have several, but I would just like to, I'll give you a call at some point. Maybe we can set up an appointment where we can go over this a little bit.
Absolutely. And again, we have a total of 156 pages in documentation for this, so it is quite a bit. I'm happy with anyone who would like to chat more on those details. I'm available and happy to go through that.
Okay, I'll give you a call soon when you're available.
Thank you.
And that was really my intent to, have this go through 3 readings. The rest of council can follow up with questions or inquiries regarding this piece of legislation, and then we can make the vote 4 weeks from now. So I think that would be time well spent. And when Jonathan and I talked about our approach to this, he welcomes those follow-up discussions with any questions that might arise on behalf of City Council.
Mr. Ansel, I just wanted to say that Mr. Malek, thank you for calling me to follow up on this legislation. I did not return your call because I had not yet completed reading through all of the documents. I have now read through them, at least on the first pass. Some of them are going to require a revisit, but I have gotten through all of them, and we can certainly talk in the next week or so to get any questions answered. But I appreciated the follow-up call very much. I didn't want you to think I didn't want to call you back, but I did have a question because I hadn't read it yet. So I will get back with you just as soon as I can.
Sure. Thank you. All the time that you need.
I'm confident that's the case for most council members when you're talking about 150 pages of complex and detailed summaries and commentaries and description. Especially, I found the residential homeowner summary very enlightening and unique, that the application for the CRA amendment with the state of Ohio was one complex document. So we have plenty of time and we can funnel those questions through Jonathan and the city administration.
We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Mr. Ansel, you have anything else?
No, I think that would conclude our discussion this evening. Do your homework, and let's be prepared to vote on this piece in 4 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, ordinance number 2020-42 has had its first reading. That brings us to miscellaneous. And let's start with, at the bottom of my screen is Mr. Sanders.
I have nothing to add this evening, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ansel.
Nothing more this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. Silvestri.
No additional comments. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Myers.
Thank you, President Bidendijk. I want to thank all my council members for the hard work this evening. My best wishes to my friend, Mr. Malta, and condolences and prayers with the family, with the Braille family with passing of David.
Mr. Bostancic,
Nothing further at this time. Thank you.
Mr. Cavan,
I think that might be it. I appreciate it though. Thank you.
I think unless I miscounted, Ms. Warren will give you the last word unless someone I've missed otherwise.
I think that's everyone. Thanks, President Bidendijk. I'd just like to echo Mr. Meyer's sentiments and say I'm grateful to hear that Mr. Malta is recovering well from his surgery, and also extend my deepest sympathy to the Braille family. I think David was a pillar in this community, and he will be sorely missed by many. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone have a safe Halloween, and I see a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, one
evening,
and all,
everyone.
council. It was a great meeting.
Thank you.
All right.